Do not make social media your primary source of Islamic learning. Assalamu alaikum. I often get questions through my social media platforms, whether it's through Facebook or Twitter. The links for these you can find in the description box below, and you can get in contact with me through there. But I use this Scattered Thoughts platform to share my scattered thoughts, things that I'm just thinking about and I'm just wanting to share with you, almost like a video vlogging type of thing, instead of a written diary. And also to address some questions. Some of your questions are really interesting. They have wide impact. They're on the minds of many Muslims. I've come across them before, and I feel like instead of just answering each one individually, I can make a video and I can answer your questions that way. And alhamdulillah, many of you seem to be benefiting from this. But there are many questions that do come through. And these questions have to deal with a variety of subjects related to the Islamic tradition that I don't answer them because they're not the type of question you would answer on Twitter or on Facebook or through this medium. These are questions that you would answer by actually going and sitting down at the feet of scholars, of teachers who are qualified, and learning your Sharia, learning your Islam, actually pursuing sacred knowledge. That's not to say that you shouldn't ask these questions or you don't have the right. Yeah, ask them, but there is a way to address them. Do not make social media your primary source of Islamic learning. You will fall into big problems if that's the case with you. You need to take a second and step back and just ask yourself, what is social media's role in your Islamic learning? Is it the only place that you get your knowledge from? Can you name a person, and ideally it should be a qualified teacher or somebody who had studied the tradition. Can you name a person who you sat with and actually learned your rulings with regards to your wudu, your ablution, or your prayer, your salah, the rulings in it? If I were to ask you right now, what are the obligatory actions of wudu? Can you name them? What are the sunnah actions of wudu? What are the virtuous, the fada'il actions of wudu? And I'm speaking from a Maliki perspective. I know the terminology can change for the Shafi'is and the Hanafis, but just bear with me for a second. If I were to ask you for your prayer, what things would break your prayer? And what things, if you forgot in your prayer, you would fix by doing the prostration of forgetfulness, sujood as-sahw? Can you name them just off the top of your head? Because as a Muslim, most of you watching this are Muslims. As a Muslim, you should be able to name these things right off the top of your head. You should not have to think about it. Okay, so I do this and do that. If I do this, if this happens, then I can do this. You should be able to answer these questions immediately. Again, with fasting. If you're somebody who's making money and you're saving money right now, at what point does zakat become incumbent upon you, becomes an obligation upon you to pay it? And how much? And how do you put it out? And who is deserving of it? What are the categories of people? What I'm naming right now are what's called fard ayn. These are the individual obligations of every single living, intelligent, baligh, past puberty Muslim, male or female. For the females, the rulings with regards to menstruation. How many days? How do you know? And what do you do? And what do you do with regards to prayer? What do you do with regards to your fasting? How do you know when you need to stop and when you need to begin? At what point do you know that this is now considered menstruation and anything other than that is not anymore? I mean, these are questions that all of us as Muslims should be able to answer it. And the menstruation stuff, by the way, for the brothers, you also need to be able to answer these questions, because you should be in your household. Once you get married, if you're not yet, and if you are married, you should be, as the head of the household, able to address these questions for your wife, your daughters, if you have daughters. These are things that you should be able to address, because they should be able to come to you and answer these questions. Fard ayn. So when I get Muslims, and I get many of you asking me questions about Sharia in politics, for example, and the Khilafah, and should a woman rule or not? Or should I, or how do we deal with inheritance? With regards to contentious issues with regards to inheritance. I mean, if you can't even name off the fard ayn stuff, the stuff that concerns, you know, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Min husni islami al-mar'i tarkuhu ma la ya'nihi." It is from the beautiful Islam of a person is to leave that which does not concern them. I have a lot of Muslims asking me all kinds of questions that address multiple aspects of the Islamic tradition. And that's great. You have a lot of curiosity. You have a lot of zeal. You want to understand. You want to know your tradition. That's fantastic. But you don't start building a house at the third or the fourth, or an apartment building at the fourth or the fifth or the sixth level. You have to start off with the foundation. And if you don't have the foundation figured out yet, you really have no business talking about the second, third, fourth, fifth level. And especially if you haven't confirmed that your foundation is solid yet. You know, you just got a couple of things barely there and now you want to build the second floor. The whole thing will collapse on you. And that's why a lot of you guys that ask me all kinds of questions that are all over the place sometimes, when I look at them, I'm like, okay, so like you don't even have the basics handled yet. You don't have a grasp on the basics. And you're jumping all the way through to the end. That's what's called talbisu iblis. You know, this is when iblis, shaitan, yulabbis alayk is like he takes something that's good and packages it in a way that deludes you. It's like his way of deluding you into thinking that you're doing something virtuous when in fact you're harming yourself. So I'll tell you one thing. My teacher, whenever we would sit down and we'd study these texts, and I would have a question, a lot of the times when I was first starting out, I learned after that to stop because it became quite ridiculous and I was amazed at how quickly my questions were getting answered as I was going through. But at the very beginning when I was asking questions, his answer was always, sayati, it will come, sayati, it will come. Basically have patience. First get a grasp on these basic alphabets and then we can talk about things that, you know, beyond that. So my advice to myself and to you guys, before you look at the questions you're asking and ask yourself first, do I have a handle on the basics? And is my Islamic education coming from social media? If it is, you need to get your act together, get to an imam that's well qualified at the mosque, get in contact with a teacher and sit down and begin with the basic texts. After that, you'll find that a lot of the questions you're asking me right now and you're sending to me and to others, I'm sure that you're sending to everybody else, you'll find that these questions will all of a sudden dissipate and you won't ask them anymore. And they won't come up because they will get answered as you're studying. I hope that helps in some way. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Assalamu alaikum. I hope you guys have been enjoying this content. I've changed the background a little bit and all of this stuff, and I'm adding more stuff to the channel. To show your support, the best thing you can do for me is to like the video and to share it with your friends and family and your social network and just, you know, tweet it and Facebook it and all of this good stuff. Those of you who are able to give some financial support in some kind to help me make some more videos, I've got a few projects that I'd like to get into. You can go to my Patreon page. The link for it is in the description box, or you can link right here. You can click right here for it, and you can help me out through that way. So anyways, I'll check you next time.